My name is Rebecca Groves, and I am the Skills and Talent Strategy Lead at Wired Sussex. A quick disclaimer before I start my presentation, and a lot of what I say is going to reflect what Allegra was saying as well, actually. And I think a key thing that comes out of what we've both said is, within our careers, there is no straight line or magic formula, and I can't stand here tonight and tell you, if you do these 4 things, then you will all land the careers of your dreams. But what I can hopefully do is give you some tips and some tools to help you along the way. And I sort of wouldn't want to give you a linear path, because I think what's brilliant about digital is that there are so many opportunities. There's opportunities that we don't even know what they're going to be yet in the emerging technologies fields and just how the industry's growing. So I think one of the key things that we can be as people who have careers in digital is just really embracing these opportunities that come along and being sort of fluid to the opportunities they come to us. So I just wanted to give that little disclaimer before I started. A quick whistle-stop tour of my career, because some of you who are here this evening I have seen at events before, and you might be thinking, Rebecca, you've been at Wired Sussex for 8 years. What are you going to tell me about developing a personal toolkit? But actually, I did have a career before Wired Sussex, and I have developed my career whilst I'm here. So just really briefly for context for anyone who I haven't met before, my background is actually in film production. I went to film school, I graduated in 2004, and I specifically focused all of my studies on being a film producer. And when I graduated, I actually, I'd done quite well with my graduating film, and it had won some awards, and I was sort of going into industry like, here I am, world, I'm ready for you. And then I got back to Stoke and realised that it wasn't actually going to be that easy. So I sort of sat in my bedroom and I looked at my skills that I developed as a producer and tried to see how I could make them work in the place that I needed to be at that time. So I actually went into being a fundraising manager for an international aid charity. And that really drew on a lot of the skills that I had around raising funds, putting together schedules. And I really did enjoy that. And I was really grateful for the confidence that role gave me and the opportunity that my employers at that time gave a fresh-faced graduate. But whilst I was there, I got offered an opportunity to follow upon some work experience I'd done at university and go out to LA to do an internship. So I left my job and went out to LA and had a fantastic time and learnt lots, and then went back to Stoke and realised that contacts in LA don't really translate to Stoke. So again, I sort of had a bit of a pivot and went back into fundraising, something that I knew. I was using new skills. I was working in corporate fundraising, so looking at sort of grant bids, and it was really interesting, but it did feel like a bit of a sidestep and something where I realised that if I spent too long there, I would be leaving behind my true passion for film. So I left that and went into what I've boldly put as indie producer, which basically meant I was self-funding my projects and working in a bar to do that. And it was great, and it worked out for a while. But I got offered an unpaid internship on a feature film. So I really wanted to do it, but I couldn't afford to do an unpaid piece of work. So I took a slightly dubious job with the Royal Bank of Scotland, which was very highly paid and very short-lived, which gave me the funds to take this unpaid internship, which was brilliant, and I got lots of opportunities. But it was unpaid, and it felt, again, like I wasn't really getting where I needed to go. So I stuck with it. I used all my savings. I moved back in with my family. But from that, I've made amazing connections, and those people really took me under their wing, and they supported me. And from that, I went out to become a freelancer, and I worked with the BBC for a while and Sky Sports, and it was really the start of things with my career taking off, and I started to see the traction, being able to start as a film producer, which I'd always wanted. And then I got a role as an assistant producer on a feature film, and I started telling all my friends, I'm doing it now, I'm a film producer. And I went and I was on set and I was on location, and about 2 months in, I thought, oh crap, I don't like it. And I felt like such a failure, because I thought, this is what I've done. I've done all these other jobs, I've done all this studying, I've spent all of my life savings, and now I'm doing it, and this is not what I want to do. So it was quite a shock. And what I tried to do again was to look at what skills am I actually using as a film producer? What do I enjoy from this? And I was really lucky that my one of the producers on the feature film that I'd done the unpaid internship for had really taken me under her wing, and she ran an organisation called the Producers Forum, which is quite similar to Wired Sussex, but specifically for film producers. And she said, I think you would be really good in this sort of role if you'd like to give it a try. Our manager's going on maternity leave and you could come and test it out. So I sort of took a sidestep into that, and I loved it, and I was using all the skills that I wanted to. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, you know, as Allegra was saying, careers do change and what you want changes, and that was quite a big realization for me. So I took this sidestep and I worked as the manager of the Producers Forum, and it was fantastic. And typically, once I decided I didn't want to be a film producer, that's when the work started to come in. So I did get funding that I've been going for literally probably about 4 or 5 years and kept getting rejected. And then they approached me and said, oh, we need a producer for a film. Would you like to do this? So I did a final film, and for me, that really sort of confirmed that at that time, that wasn't really where I wanted to be. I'd made a decision that I wanted to move to Brighton. I wanted to have a home and a place to live for more than 6 months at a time. So I spoke with my manager at the Producers Forum, and I was just really honest with her. And I said, I don't think this is going to be for me long term. I feel like I need to relocate and have a change. And I'm really grateful that she really encouraged me to not think about another sidestep, but to really try and step up in my career. And so I left from working at the Producers Forum. I went to work for the British Film Institute, working with them to expand their audience outside of London, engage with people who don't normally go to the National Film Theatre. And it was a dream career. It was a perfect opportunity for me. It tapped into everything that I loved about film and the arts, and engaging people who may otherwise not have an opportunity to go to those sorts of organisations. But after I'd been there for about 9 months, I thought, crap, it's not for me, because I didn't want to commute. And I knew that actually fundamentally under all of this was that I just wanted to have a bit of stability in my life. And I knew that I wanted that to be in Brighton. So I did a lot of research on careers in Brighton and employers and what might be a good fit for me. And I came across a company called Wired Sussex. I thought, that sounds intriguing. And at the time, it was 4 members of staff in a tiny room upstairs. But I could see this real ambition. I went to a couple of the events. I heard Phil, our MD, talking, and I could really see that I could fit in there. So sort of stalked the company for a little while online, and then I saw an opportunity come up for an administration manager. And to be honest, it was a pretty big step down, and it was a huge pay cut. And it was I was going to say it was a tough choice, but really, actually, it wasn't. I knew that this could be a place where I could bed in and I could grow with the organisation. So I did join, just coming up to 8 years ago, as administration manager. And over the next few years, I worked with Phil, our MD. I was very clear about my ambition with my career and what I wanted to do and the skills I thought I could bring and where I could see the company growing. And together, we sort of positioned my role. So I went from administration manager to projects and operations manager. And then as the company grew, that role separated out, and I became head of projects, and I ran all the projects that I think quite a few people here have been involved with. And then recently, I say recently, a year ago, 2 years ago, I went on maternity leave, and we had a restructure. And I felt quite anxious about that. I was coming back to a completely new role. But actually, once again, we've managed to make it fit. So I've now taken on a new specialist role in Wired Sussex, which is Skills and Talent Strategy Lead. And that really is about understanding from our member companies what their challenges are around attracting, training, and retaining talent. And also, how do we work with people who are either working in the industry or who want to work in the industry to really inspire and inform and empower them to have really fulfilling careers. So that's whistle-stop tour of my 15 years, and definitely enough about me. So I will now move on to your personal development toolkit. What I thought I would do is, particularly sort of coming back from maternity leave, there was a lot of processes that I went through as a sort of program manager. Everything for me needs a process and a template, and so that's sort of what I've applied to my career. And I just thought it might be helpful to share some of that with you. So I'll just sort of spend the next 10 minutes or so talking you through some of that. Oh, sorry. So these are the key things I'll cover. So what do you want from your career? Where are you now in that journey? Where do you want to be? And how do you get there? So what do you want? This was a very strong theme in what Allegra was saying, but I think it's so important. I was sort of saying at the start, digital careers can change very rapidly, and I think where you can have consistency is what you want and what your, to sort of use Allegra's term, what your purpose is, where you get your joy. And so for me, when I came back from maternity leave, I felt like I'd lost all my confidence. I felt like I'd lost my way a little bit. And to be honest, I looked for the answers to that externally for quite a while. I was looking for other people to tell me what I needed to do to focus on my career, what I needed to do to build my confidence. And it actually took a while for me to realize that can only come from me. So I sat down and I sort of tried to map it all out and sort of try and put a structure around that. And I developed what I very boldly called the Groves Grid, because it needed a name about an hour ago. I couldn't think of anything. I wasn't very creative. But I've actually printed some copies of this out for you to take away with you. And really what this did was to give me a framework to start to think through what I offer an employer, because actually it's really important not only for yourself to know what you're bringing to your employers, but also for them to know what you're bringing, and they don't know unless you tell them. So I've put I am, and this is really all the stuff that your friends would say about you. So are you passionate? Are you enthusiastic? All those sort of soft skills. I listed all of those there. And then I can. So that's where I listed all of the skills that I was bringing to work. So that would obviously be different depending on whatever role you're working in, but that's sort of those hard skills. Then I enjoy were the things that actually, that's what I really want to get out of my job. They're the things that I want to focus on and expand on more. And I want is really the bottom line, and that could be a salary, or it could be a location, or it could be working hours, or flexible working, or career progression, or benefits, or I really need to take my dog to work on a Thursday, like whatever those things are that you need from a job. I put those in there. And then really that should give you a blueprint for whatever roles it is that you want to go into. And to be honest, when work spoke to me about this new role, I had to think, is that what I want? Do I want to become a skills and talent strategy lead? Does that tie into my passion? Does that tie into my skill set and the skills I want to use? And luckily it did, and hopefully I'm doing an okay job at it. But I think this is something that you can use for yourself. You don't need to share it with anyone. But that can just be a good thing to revisit and just make sure that you are clear on what it is that you want. Also, I've sort of done a little resources section. We're going to hear from Rifa later, but what this does is a very light touch, but there are other resources that you can use if you want career coaching, or if you want to sort of more fully explore those opportunities, then you can look at coaching and things like that. So we've looked at what we sort of want. Then I'm obsessed with this lady. I was saying to my colleagues, I literally could have done my entire presentation with just Parks and Recreation slides, but I wasn't sure how well it would go down. But yes, so we focused on what we want, and then it's thinking about where you are now. And with our employers, we often have appraisals once a year, and to varying degrees, you can focus on your life outside work. And I know a lot of employers in Brighton are very progressive in their appraisals, and they really focus on developing you as a person, not as your role. But I think a lot of us have things that we wouldn't necessarily want to share with employers. It might be that you've had something very personal happen to you in a year that you maybe don't want to share with your employer, but has had a profound impact on you and your confidence or your skills. Or it could be that maybe you've made an absolute howler at work and you don't really want to tell your boss about it, but you learned a huge amount from it. So I think it's really important and empowering to give yourself an appraisal once a year. And the sorts of things that I include in it are, and I've done a printout of this for you as well to take with you. It's looking at the year that's just gone. What was your biggest achievement and why was that? What was your biggest failings and why did they happen? And what were the biggest challenges that you came across? And then thinking about the year ahead, also, what are your aspirations for that year? What does success look like? I'm very output driven, so for me, I always have to have, I will do this and it will look good by this. And then also, what steps can you take to achieving those goals? And then I think the really important thing is breaking those steps down into manageable things that you can do maybe on a monthly basis. So on the back of the appraisal form that I've printed out, there's like just a little monthly checklist that you can give yourself. And I'd really suggest just taking either a lunch break once a week, take yourself out for a nice sandwich, or if you've got a quiet evening, once a month, just have some touch point where you can just review this yourself and just give yourself small manageable tasks each month and start to chip away at some of these goals to reach a bigger end game. And a few resources around this. There's a podcast that I don't know if has anyone listened to How to Fail? I've only come across it recently and I've binged almost the entire thing. And honestly, it's almost fundamentally changed how I approach work, because I have often been very scared of failure and very scared to admit when things go wrong because I like to deliver or over-deliver. But actually, this podcast really celebrates things that haven't gone right. And the lady that runs it, Elizabeth Day, is very eloquent. And she says that by learning from our mistakes and understanding why we fail, ultimately we become stronger. And I love that idea. And there's a huge variety of people on there. And it's not entirely career focused, but there are lots of people talking about their careers, a lot of people from the sort of the arts and the creative sectors. And I'd really recommend having a listen to that if you haven't done already. Also, the Goodbye Hello book was recommended by Allegra, and there's another similar sort of document which is called this sort of planning worksheets by a lady called Hannah Bullivant, and these are sort of more sort of thorough versions of the appraisal that I've given. It's all about reflection and goal setting. So if you want to have a more comprehensive stab at any of that, then I'd recommend those as well. So now we know what we want, and we're starting to look at sort of the next steps. So how do you get to where you want to be? And I think one of the key things around that is researching what's next. So particularly if you're looking to sort of step up in your career, or step across into the digital sector, or maybe step out into a different career, a really good way to make changes in your career is to look at job descriptions and to look at job adverts and to see what is required for those roles. So if you're working as a marketing manager, what does a senior marketing manager job description look like? What skills do those people have? And then start to think about, how does that relate to the skills that you have? Where are there gaps in your skills, and how can you start to fill those gaps? And there's also a template which I've given out which helps you to break down some of that thought process and some of that mapping as well. And so a good resource for starting to think about where you can see these job descriptions is on our website. We've got a directory, so you can either look at particular types of companies. You could look at your company and see if they've got any roles that you could be going for there. Or you could have a look at job descriptions for the next role up from yours on our jobs board and start to see what skills are required. Also then, when you find out these gaps in your skills, how do you actually fill them? And there's lots of ways that you can do that, both yourself and with additional resource. One of the key ways for sort of self-led learning is something that I came across from a lady called Tamara Adlin. And I love this concept that is the thing that's stopping you from going for the next job something that you could learn in 2 weeks by reading 2 books. And I think that there's so many skills that are easily achievable ourselves and there's so many resources out there to empower us to do it. And you can do that either through formal learning as well. So there's training providers locally who can give you upskills. Also, there's lots of online courses. And what's really key in Brighton as well is the community events that happen. So a lot of learning is done, particularly through freelancers in our sector, by going to community events and learning from each other. So on our events page, which many of you may have found out about this event through, we have lots and lots and lots of community events. So pretty much anything that you're interested in going along to, you'll probably see an event for there. And if you don't, feel free to ask us and we can help point you in the right direction. Also, in terms of online learning, Google Digital Garage, who spoke at our talent festival last year, they have a whole range of online courses that you can do for free. And also FutureLearn have a lot of digital specific courses as well that you can do. So now we know what you want to do. We know the skills that you need. You've started to get some of those skills, and now it's about telling the outside world how great you are. So that's all about building your online brand. And we know that most of the time, people who have never met us will Google us to see who we are before they meet with us, particularly recruiters. And so what you want to ensure is that when someone Googles you, what they see is what you want them to see. And so there's a few key things you can do around that. So one is an online audit. So I don't know how many people frequently Google themselves. Saying that, I realise I haven't Googled myself recently, so I'm really hoping that no one Googles me and something embarrassing comes up. So fingers crossed on that one. But have a Google of yourself, see what comes up. Remember that if someone has never met you before, this is all they'll know of you, so make sure that that is really well curated. And you can do that by updating your online profiles. So think about what profiles are most relevant for you. You don't have to use all of them. Think about which ones best suit what you do. Do those profiles reflect your achievements and aspirations? Are they up to date? Make sure you're following relevant people and make sure that you're posting content that is relevant to that audience. And I actually saw that Google Garage we're not sponsored by Google Garage. I just found this resource was really useful. We actually have a resource. They have a resource that that's all about developing your personal brand, and it's just a short 3-minute video, and there were lots of really good tips on there that I was going to share, but I thought we'll give you the link to it, and then you can get it straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So another great way to expand your toolkit is the people who you work with and who are connected with you. So it's really important to make good connections and to be able to show them what it is that we're doing. So I just want to quickly cover where to find some of those people, who those sorts of people might be, and how you find out who they are, and what you say about yourself. So where to find them? As I said, there's lots and lots of community events that happen across Sussex, and they're a really good informal way to expand your contacts. And also lots of industry conferences. Lots of industry conferences happen in Brighton. And some of them you have to pay for, not all of them. But they're a really good way to meet new people and to share who you are. Also, having a look at the events before you go can be really helpful. So have a look on Twitter. Is there a hashtag that the event are using that you can follow to see who else is talking about being there? Is it on Meetup? Can you see the list of people who are going? Or on Eventbrite, can you see a list there either? Also, I think it's really important to think about what you want to say about yourself at that event. Are you going because you've got something specifically that you want to share or get out of it? And then try and put together an elevator pitch so that you can really focus in on what you want to say. If you're like me, I just can't stop talking sometimes, and then by the end I think, oh, did I actually say what I was meaning to say? So I think by just giving yourself a little elevator pitch, practicing that beforehand, it just can be really helpful both for yourself and for the people that you're speaking with. And then after the event, following up with people, so adding them on LinkedIn if it's a new contact, or if you've had a really good conversation with somebody, dropping them a note afterwards, just following up on that. And in terms of the resources from that, LinkedIn is the obvious one, really. And the final point, and for me, I think the point that is the most important, perhaps, is your clan. That's something I stole from Parks and Recreation as well. But this idea of your clan, your group of people that have your back and that represent you. And for me, that has been the backbone to my career, are those people who will champion you, who will support you, who will inform and inspire you. And I've sort of tried to break them down into 3 categories. So community sort of being like the people you might meet at events or alumni or colleagues or your friends. And really, you can learn with them and share with them and collaborate. And your champions, they might be previous managers, or a lot of my champions are my previous the people I used to manage, who've gone on to do amazing things and really feel like they champion me still, and also mentors. So people, maybe maybe leaders from your industry, or maybe even from outside your industry, but people who can inform and inspire you. And in terms of the resources from that, it's basically everything that we've just spoken about. It's the events that you go to, it's your online community, it's maybe people that you've been on courses with, and it's going to be different for everyone. So I think there isn't a blueprint for that one, I'm afraid, but I'm sure that you all already have plans, and it's just building upon that. So that's it, really. Thank you so much. Good luck. And I'm very excited now to hand over to Rifa.